Welcome to another video about Ace Razor's SP, where I have a couple of features that I'm going to show. Please excuse the poor quality of the video because I do not prepare, and this will just be a ramble and a bit of a show and tell ramble. So here we are. I'm going to show the features in the drone menu first, the Rockhopper menu. Well, it's a little bit harder to fly the Rockhopper to begin with because you're fighting gravity. There's more cameras involved already. So showing the extra cameras will just be a little bit more of a challenge. So I'm going to go over here to the International Space Station, and here we are on the exterior of the International Space Station. And if you recall, or maybe you did not know, but recently I added these dockable weights in fixed dock ports. And one of the things that I felt when I was adding these dockable weights is that when I wanted to try to show it off, I found it to be that these camera views that I have just don't do it justice. So you can dock to this dockable weight and then push it around like a tugboat, kind of like. And I just wished that I could show more camera angles of it. So I've added two cameras. The first one is a velocity cam, which, as you can see, I'm going to toggle it right here, is actually basically identical to the one right there, but now you can switch that to full screen. So if you're going to get some velocity going over here, let's say I'm going to go this way. So now the velocity camera is going to follow me, so if I want to get turned around and then check out what's going on over here, you can see that the velocity camera is not going to help me aim where I'm trying to fly. I'll have to use the FPV camera for that, but especially once I've got a weight in tow, it might provide for some interesting views that you can use while playing the game and trying to show off your dockable weight in action. And then the other camera that is probably a little bit more useful in some scenarios is one that it works the same as similar to the camera in the Warp Hopper, but you can set it up, you can switch back to the FPV camera, and then you can switch back to that camera again, and look, it's still set up. So here I am up at this dockable weight, and I'm coming in here, coming up to the dock port, I'm lining it up, I'm trying to get all accurately lined up, and I can show, here I am, and I can show, and show it, and then show it, and then keep getting lined up. And so then that's one thing that's pretty cool, but once you're actually docked, that's when you really want to show. So let me get some. So now you can see that I've got this dockable weight going on right here. So if I want to go flying around here, I'm going to try to get turned around. This is the lightest weight, so it's the easiest one to get turned around with. And if I'm going to try to find a nice angle to show myself flying around, then here I go. And I can kind of fly around, and you can see that I'm connected up to this weight, and it's affecting my performance. And even though this one's the lightest one, you can still see that if normally I would just go straight to the left, but if I apply some straight to the left force, I end up with this pretty significant rotation because now my thrust is being applied out at the end of like a pendulum. So if I wanted to kind of try to show this in action here, let me just get a couple of load this course. Load it up. Okay, and now I can get going here and see there's a hoop. There's a hoop right over here. And you can see I'm struggling to fly irregular. So let me go to this hoop right here. And you can see I'm getting lined up for the hoop. And here you can see me kind of pushing this hoop right through there, pushing this weight right through there. And so that's kind of what this camera is about. It's to kind of allow you to enjoy the cinematic views of the thrusters in action. So it's a little bit hard to fly from it. I'm sure that's something that you would get used to over time, but it does kind of make it nice to where now you can kind of show and tell and kind of see what's going on a little bit. And you can see that there's no physical contact between me and the dockable weight, but it's just a game, and I kind of like that actually. It kind of looks like kind of fun, kind of cheesy. I try to have the physics going on with the actual controls of the spacecraft, but as you can see, these hoops, they're just here, suspended in space. You know, nothing's connected to them. They're not hooked up anyway, you know, and then you're gonna switch to the warp hopper. Oops, let me undock here. So then you're gonna switch to the warp hopper. Oh, I'm gonna reset here with this. I got all that stuff. So when you switch to the warp hopper, now you're just defying physics in every way, you know, and you use the warp hopper, and that's how you can place the rings. And the rings just stay there suspended in space. So the fact that the drone doesn't physically connect to the dockable weights, you know, that doesn't bother me at all. You still get to practice the flying, and that's the main thing. So you can see that when I switch to the warp hopper, my weight doesn't eject. It doesn't reset, all that kind of stuff. Part of the problem there is that my code is all over the place. So one day, hopefully, I'll be able to get to where when you switch to the warp hopper, it'll untoggle you from all of your docking actions. But for the moment, you just have to make sure that you're undocked before you switch. And I've been paying attention to how many downloads I've gotten since I put this dockable weights in, and at the moment I'm not concerned at all if anyone's going to be worried about that, because I don't think I've gotten any. So then we're just going to go pop over here to the Rockhopper menu, and I'll go to this lunar surface test, and here we can see this big Egyptian cat. These Egyptians, they got here with the ancient aliens out to the moon before anyone else got a chance. And once again, you can see we have a nice camera. You can see the 3 hull-mounted cameras there on the Rockhopper drone. So those 3 front cameras, that's this camera, and this camera. So you see I'm seeing down at an angle, up at an angle, and straight front. I'll switch back, and then if I come around to the back side here, you can see that there's an up and a down camera on there, and that is going to be this camera, which is the down camera, and this camera, which is the up camera. And again, I do have this velocity cam, which I don't like very much. So if you watch, I'm going to come straight under the ground, you know, and then if I'm going to try to fly it around, it's just really hard to tell where I'm going. I just have to fly through this camera right here to stay oriented, or one of the other mounted cameras. But again, you know, if I'm going to come do a flyby of this cat, maybe I'm going to come get lined up here in this 45 angle camera so I can get some acceleration, and then maybe I want to kind of see what's going on here, then I can do that. And again, I can also switch to this other camera, which stays fixed, so I can put it at, you know, any different position. And I need to buy a graphics card in order to make this map work a little better. But I did actually put a warning there that these 2 right here might cause low frame rates, especially when you're switching the cameras, when I noticed. So again, here we are. And I can set this camera up, and then I can kind of see where I'm going here. Get flying into this here hoop. I can pop over to this camera, and just using this I can make some more cinematic views of what's going on in the game. A little bit nicer for somebody who's going to try to watch and see what's going on. If they want to check the game out, see if they maybe like the game, they're probably going to have to fly through the same camera as I am, but they're just not going to be able to see very well what's going on. So using this other camera, maybe that'll kind of be in there so that you can show what's going on, or maybe somebody can see what's going on, or maybe somebody can decide if they like the game. When they come and check it out, they can kind of have a little easier time of getting a picture of what's going on. Just like that. So like I say, I'm not a very good pilot. And I'm crashing a lot when I'm trying to show these cameras off. But I just included these cameras today. I have no practice with it. And I'm not much of a video gamer to begin with. I just kind of like playing this game right here that I've been working on, and some other space games. And this game right here, it offers a lot, because when you get playing a space game with more realistic physics, the first thing that happens right away is you kind of get, I guess, trapped into the limitations of whatever game you're playing, as far as just the navigational challenges that are available. So maybe your ship is a size, or maybe there's only a few kinds of maneuvering to be had for the most part, or you can try to do a lot more maneuvering, in some generated terrain. But honestly, generated terrain just doesn't offer that much, particularly once you get more realistic physics. If you don't have realistic physics and you can corner really hard, then naturally generated terrain or spiky terrain can kind of offer a few more options for challenge. But for the most part, you just have to use your imagination, and I find that by arranging rings into patterns, you really get a whole lot more just out of that. And then by the time you can put in dockable weights and dockable ports into the mix, so I don't know what I'm going to do, if I'm going to include dockable weights and ports and stuff into the Rockhopper yet. I've considered it. I think it would be fun, maybe some docking ports that you can dock to while you're up in the air. But I just haven't yet, and then of course landing pads, if you could dock to them, if I ended up with some fuel limitations, some fuel limitations in there somehow to kind of get you going the laps, but you don't want to run out of fuel. That's presently not in the game at all. It's not really in the works. That would be a major challenge to include. It would be really fun, particularly when you're talking about dockable weights, because now you have multiple, consumption rates that you kind of have to organize out in your mind. So having a fuel that runs out, that would be kind of fun, but at the moment my game is just this big arena, and there's no real objectives. It's just if you went out into the yard. So I think that having a fuel limitation would be something that I kind of add into the game after there's maybe organized racing or some kind of organized challenge completion that you can do. And at the present time, there's none of that. It's just you can set up a little obstacle arena and you can fun fly around it. You can try to race or go faster or slower if you want to, but it's kind of all on you, up in your imagination, to figure that kind of stuff out. Whereas having a fuel limitation, that will kind of make a more of an impact when you might have an actual race that you're trying to accomplish. So, but as far as dockable weights with the Rockhopper, I think it would be fun, but I just haven't figured out how to implement something like that and how it should work. Maybe if I was docking to the top of the Rockhopper, then it would be this interesting thing where you really have to watch your balance. Or if you dock to the bottom, I don't know what that would be like. That might be what I go with, and then you can land on some weight, and then you can kind of fly it somewhere and drop it off. And it might be this heavy thing, or maybe it'll be heavier with the Rockhopper, whereas with the drone, the mass of the drone is 100 on normal, whereas the weights are only 2, 3.5, and 5. So you end up with a lot of rotational trauma, but not a lot of actual sacrifice in your thrust performance when you're trying to go in a straight line forward. So maybe with the Rockhopper I can make it so that it's just quite a bit harder to fight gravity. So it'll be just quite a bit heavier, and then it won't be so far off center. It'll be right at the bottom of the Rockhopper, but maybe it'll just be quite a bit heavier, so everything that you do while carrying it around will just be that much harder. I haven't figured it out yet. I haven't decided. I might try to experiment with the pad one first, where you land on a pad and then you tow it around. Alright, thank you very much.